Hello, Coldwell Banker. Happy New Year and welcome to the Mile High View. I'm Tammy Miller. Today we're taking a close look at some of the lessons learned in 2024 and the indicators of what might be headed our way in 2025. But first, I want to give a shout out to all of you for your amazing energy and patience this past year. You dealt with client anxieties and sometimes a slower market and something like 12 zillion coffee and conversation classes. I know it was a lot. Thanks to you, our Colorado company has performed well despite the challenges and is well positioned for an exciting new year in real estate. Today, we have a great lineup of experts from Real Property Management. Greg Batchelor will touch on the rental outlook for this year. Next up, we have Amanda Snitker, Global Luxury Denver agent and the chair of the DMAR Market Trends Committee. And then joining us is Lane Lyon, our Global Luxury Ambassador. He has a look at how the luxury market is faring and ways to grow your business in that sector. And our very special guest from Laughs and Graphs, Dr. Elliot Eisenberg. Elliot is an internationally acclaimed economist and public speaker. His 70-word commentary is delivered to 30,000 inboxes each day. He'll be joining us a bit later in the program with what's in store for 2025. Always a great time with Elliot. So first up, I'd like to welcome Greg Batchelor to the Mile High View. Welcome, Greg.
Thank you, Tammy. It's an honor to be here.
How's your new year started?
It's been great. How about yours?
Pretty good, yeah. I'm excited for an amazing 2025.
Totally agree.
All right, so Greg, it seems like the rental market has been a little out of equilibrium last year. Is that accurate? And if so, what does that translate into? What are the biggest factors driving that?
Yeah, that's a great question. The market has definitely been out of equilibrium in 2024. Supply well outstripped demand, which obviously in a scenario like that, there's only one place for rental prices to go when supply is outstripping demand that much, and they're going to have to soften, which they did. And we watched that all throughout 2024. Now, there were some areas where demand was a little bit stronger than others and or weaker than others, so it wasn't quite as impactful. But for the most part, the market was definitely out of equilibrium in 2024.
Okay, is there a certain part of Colorado that you saw better rental opportunities?
Yes, we did. As a matter of fact, so if we think about the Front Range, so roughly 80% of Colorado's population is in the Front Range. Okay. And so if we start from the south down the Colorado Springs area, there were some areas in southern Colorado Springs, the Fountain, Fort Carson areas did very, very well. Come up here to the Denver areas, we start to move out toward the east. There were areas in eastern part of Aurora and actually moving out that I-70 corridor. We're beginning to see people begin to invest, going out to Watkins and Byers and Bennett, some of those areas that have typically been tertiary to the Denver area. They're now more the Denver Metroplex. And then also like Frederick, Firestone, some other areas in the Greeley area up north, we have seen, and they have still continued to remain strong.
Okay, so do you see the investors that made the adjustments in 2024? Will those be the same adjustments they're making in 2025?
They will.
Okay.
Yes, I think there is some very similar trends. So I think one of the components that Elliot outlined so well prior is we are going to see certain places, certain parts of town where on the buy side, there's going to be some amazing buy side deals in 2025. Investors need to be watching for that.
Okay. So Greg, it seems like there were ongoing streams of regulatory changes in 2024.
Sure.
Are we going to see more changes in 2025?
Yes, I think we will.
Okay.
So one of the components when we have had as much population growth into the Front Range area since COVID, and even before then a little bit, the legislature in downtown is having to spend more time thinking through that. So there was a lot of legislation, certain clauses that can and cannot be in leases and pet rents and pet deposits and certain tenants that you can renew and can't renew under certain circumstances. And I do suspect that we're going to see similar in 2025. We continue to hear from our local politicians that housing affordability still remains just a huge issue. And so therefore, I think we'll see more legislation, especially as our legislature, state legislature has just recently kicked off.
Okay, so of all that fun in 2024 with clauses and regulations, what was
Sure.
the most challenging for your clients?
Yes. The interesting part was watching them adapt to those changes so rapidly. And whether it's us as a property management company, whether it's an investor that's doing it on their own, et cetera, having to make sure that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, that has by far been everyone's challenge, just trying to keep up with the velocity of when those changes have come.
Okay. So I know that you have your crystal ball.
Yes.
So what's the anticipation of 2025 in the rental market?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the components that we see, I think 2025 cash is going to be king again. There are definitely going to be some cash buyers that are going to come into this marketplace, and they're going to have some opportunities with inventory levels increasing and people reaching desperate stages where they need to sell. A cash offer is going to go a long way, and I think investors who have some money that they want to transfer out of the stock market or out of a 401k or IRA or something of that nature and deploy into real estate, I think there's going to be some good options for that this year.
Okay. So any wild cards in 2025 for the rental market?
Oh, that's a great question. I think the biggest wild card is going to be interest rates. So one of the components is we think through interest rates on that particular piece. If they stay relatively where they are now, then I think we'll see the market continue to do what it's doing. If interest rates are to take some significant drops in 2025, that could be an amazing sell-off in a lot of investors that are choosing to redeploy their assets in other places and or other areas. And so I think that's probably our biggest wild card for 2025 is what are interest rates going to do and then what behaviors do or don't align with that.
Okay. Well, Real Property Management Colorado is a hugely successful company. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
How many rentals do you carry?
About 1,650.
Okay.
Yes.
That's a lot.
Enough to keep us busy. Thank God for 45 really good employees that help us keep those wheels on the bus every day.
All right. Well, I know that you do an amazing job. Thank you so much for all of your assistance when our agents refer their clients and investors that are looking to have help on that rental market.
Thank you. And we're very honored.
So is the Front Range is still a great place to invest?
It is still a great place to invest. Make no mistakes about it. When we think about the whole Denver marketplace, I know that there are stats out there that show that Colorado remains one of the key states where people want to move to. They still like the absolutely beautiful mountains that we have outside and the microbreweries, everything else that Colorado has to offer. And so it is still a great place to invest, especially if people are thinking long term. Make no mistakes about it. There could be some more bumps. There could be any combination of things that are going to take place short term, but long term, Colorado is a very safe bet.
Okay. Any other words of wisdom for us, Greg?
You know what? As we go into 2025, I would just encourage everyone, be looking for opportunities. I think they're going to come in different avenues, different ways. People are beginning to think differently, having now adjusted to this interest rate environment. And so maybe not thinking all the same channels, those will still work, but there may be some new ones to think through on that. And I think investors will thrive in that world.
Okay, awesome. Now I have a trick question. Well, maybe not a trick question.
We'll go with trick questions.
So are you somebody who sets a resolution for the year?
Oh, that is a great question. I did set one resolution for this year.
And one that you can share?
One that I can share, yes. So it has to do with losing some weight. I know I am not the only one that has done that, but I have a resolution of 2.5 and 25, which is I need to strip off 2.5 pounds a month in 25.
Okay. Well, you got this.
Got it.
All right.
January's off to a great start. We're going to keep rolling.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much, Greg, for everything that you do for Coldwell Banker. We appreciate you. Thanks for being on the show today. Have an amazing year, and we'll check in again.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
All right. Up next, I'm excited to introduce Amanda Snitker, one of our top producing agents out of our Global Luxury Denver office, and also the DMAR Market Trends Committee Chair. Welcome, Amanda.
Thanks.
How are you today?
I'm good.
Wonderful. So let's just take a little peek back to 2024.
Yes.
Did it meet our expectations? If so, how? Or did we miss the mark?
I would say it did not meet expectations, but we might have been optimistic.
Okay.
We had expected more interest rate reductions. and possibly earlier in the year. We did get those 3 Fed reductions towards the end in the second half of the year, but it did not translate into lower mortgage rates. So we did not see that benefit the real estate market the way we had expected.
Okay. Can we talk about December and November data in 2024 compared to 2023 and then year to date?
Yes, we can. So on this table here at the top is attached and detached combined, and then below is detached and attached broken out. So if we just look at the top here for the combination of the two, this end of month active listings is the number of active listings we have on the market on the last day of the month. So December 31st, we had about 7,000 active listings, which was down about 26% from November, which is typical. We usually see about a 25% decrease month over month from November to December. And that just happens from fewer inventory entering the market, sellers maybe taking their property off the market for the holidays. And then we have a lot of expired listings that happened in December because we all write our listing agreement to expire December 31st. So that's a pretty typical month over month decrease that we see for us. New listings obviously was also down month over month because of all the reasons I just stated, but we were up from last year in December. So that was good. We were up about 6% in new listings, and pendings were also down month over month, but up 8% from December 2023. And closed units was pretty similar month over month, but then again, we were up over 2023. So those are all really good metrics to see increasing. Our median sale price was $580, which was the same as November, and up about 5% over December of 2023. When we look at the way that detached and attached are behaving a little bit separately, we still, we saw a lot more improvement in our numbers year over year than what we saw in the attached. We saw a 7, almost 8% decrease in pending attached units versus seeing, what do we have, 15% increase in pending of detached. So they are behaving differently year over year. And we can talk more about this attached segment. It's not performing poorly, but it is having some struggles that the detached is not. And that's mostly around HOA dues and insurance costs.
I know that those seem to be a little bit more challenging right now for those very reasons. HOA, we got some insurance issues, reserves, a lot of things going on with those attached.
Yeah. And then one more thing I want to point out. So we have this median days on market in December was 40 days. And that's pretty much the same for attached or detached. But when we report this number, it is the median days on market for properties that closed in that month. Not what's actively on the market. So when you look at properties that were active on the market in December that did not sell, their median days is closer to 80.
Okay, interesting. So it felt like there was more momentum in the fourth quarter. Was that just a perception, or do the numbers say the same story?
Well, I think some of both. We did see an increase year over year in activity in December from what we had last year. I think buyers had waited expecting more of a change in the interest rates, and we didn't see it. We saw a quick little drop in September, and so maybe there were people that just felt the pressure of like, I'm not going into one more year looking for a house. Like, I've been doing this for years and we're just wrapping it up. So I do think that there was a bump in activity. I certainly felt with my listings towards the end of the year. But I don't know, I think maybe that's a little more anecdotal than really showing up in the statistics, but we might be able to see that come out in January.
Okay. Great. So how is the increase in active inventory related to the buyer demand?
Well, I guess if we look at, this is year over year, year to date data, year over year, looking back to 2020. So what's interesting about our inventory is that we have more inventory on the market than we have had in many years. Going back, we'll show you in another graph, but it's back to 2012, 2013. So we feel like we have all of these options for our clients now, and we should be able to go out and just find them something really great. But when you look at the new listings total for the year, we only had about 56,000 listings total enter the market for the year. And when you compare that to other years, we were up 12% from 23, so that's great. But when you look at those other years through the pandemic, we're still down quite a bit. So you don't have more inventory to choose from, you just have a longer period of time to think about it.
Okay, interesting. Well, and I think too, it goes to desirable inventory.
Correct.
Right.
We certainly have just a pool of inventory that just is hanging around.
Right.
And whether that's undesirable or just poorly priced might be two different things. You know, you might have a really great property, but it's just overpriced.
Sure.
And the buyers aren't willing to make that compromise at this high of affordability.
Okay. So you mentioned that buyers have time to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the things that are holding buyers back?
I think a lot of it is just the cost. It is a scary, you know, it feels unattainable. And in some regards, because of those costs, it might feel reckless almost, you know, where you're like, I want to make a really good decision and I want to buy the perfect house. And I think with all of the factors that are at play right now, we kind of get in our heads about it. And where the pandemic years, we didn't have time. No, nobody had time to overthink anything. And it just, you went with a gut instinct, and people certainly bought homes that were not the right home because they felt that pressure. But I also think for a lot of people, it probably was the best way to buy a house because you just made the decision that your heart and your gut and your brain, because you had run all the numbers for years, you knew it was going to work and you were ready to just run through that. And now there's almost so much time that you can kind of overthink or talk yourself out of it. Title companies are reporting a 40 to 40% termination rate. So they have contracts come in and the buyers terminate before closing. So that is really high. We typically are seeing a 15% or less. So buyers are getting in and then either not being able to work through negotiating inspections or things like that with sellers, or having issues with insurance, or just getting cold feet and then backpedaling and not moving forward.
Sure. Are you seeing any of that? Are you seeing any appraisal issues?
I have not seen any appraisal issues.
Okay. Okay. So is our market stabilizing in any way back to pre-pandemic levels?
Well, I guess it depends on how far back you want to go. I don't know. You want to talk about price?
Sure. Let's talk about price.
Okay. Well, let's just talk about price first.
Okay.
This was month changes throughout this year. And so this is a pretty typical cycle that we see. We saw in the spring our prices tend to increase, and we saw this year a 9.5% increase in price from the start of the year to our peak. And then we typically see it kind of taper off a little bit through the rest of the year, and we recapture some of that increase. And then we went down about 3.7%.
Okay.
So this is a normal cycle. Now the magnitude is different depending on the year, but this year is pretty flat, but it is typical of what we see. So when we look at pricing over time and talk about kind of these pandemic years here of where we're at on this trajectory. So this goes back to 2015 and our median sale price was $315,000. I know, which felt like a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot in 2015.
Yeah.
Yes.
And now our median was $580 for this year, and this is attached and detached. So we're saw an 84% increase over those years, which came out to about 9% a year.
Wow.
So I think this is really good to use when clients are like, I don't know if now's the right time. And to some degree, I guess it depends on what you're looking at, but it doesn't matter. Like, you just have to get in the game.
Sure.
And it's time in the market when you're purchasing a primary home, right? And so being able to time these peaks and valleys perfectly is really hard to do because you don't know when that peak hit or the valley until it's over.
Right.
And so kind of taking that perception out of buyers' minds of like, they just want to be so good at what they do in the market that they just time it perfect. And you just really, it's very hard to do.
It's very hard to do. And then I think then that's when buyers get paralyzed.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Because they're waiting for something magical. Like interest rates are going to drop, prices are going to drop, and we wait and wait. And I don't think waiting is ever a good play.
Yeah. No, I mean, if you are in a position financially to participate in the market, you should participate in the market.
Sure.
Because it's just outpricing you as time goes on. And so looking at these pandemic years where we obviously had these peaks and jump really high, we've come back down, but we're still in that normal line of trajectory going back to 2015. And a 9% return on a place that you are living in is a really good investment.
It's a really good investment. It is a really good investment.
Yeah.
Okay, what do we want to talk about next?
Let's see. Okay, inventory. I know I keep talking about inventory. We've talked about inventory for a long time.
Oh, yes.
But we were talking about it before because we didn't have any. And now we feel like we have a lot. But as you know, it's still like the total count for the year wasn't amazing. But when you see this gold, the gold bars are the new listings that enter the market each month. And this is a very normal trend for us where we start the year low, we peak around May or June, and then it tapers off through the rest of the year. This blue line, or these blue bars, is the active listings on the market. And then this green line is days on market. So you can see again, in the first part of the year, it kind of matches that inventory in
Sure.
new listings and active kind of grow together. And then we see the peak. And then we see inventory continue to grow, but new inventory is decreasing. So this inventory is building from just sitting on the market, not anything new coming in. And then we see kind of this drop down here, and that's again that November and December, and that's purely seasonal. Of people pulled properties off the market, or new listings were so low that it just dropped that inventory down.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with the increase in inventory, is that a relief for buyers, or what's your perspective on that?
Well, I think it depends on, I don't actually.
Okay. Fair enough.
I mean, there are some variables in that, but when you look at that total year-to-date count, we didn't have more to choose from.
No.
And so, while maybe it's one of those things where like you didn't like it the first day, but it comes through in your feed 5 or 6 times, you're like, well, we'll go look at it. And then you're like, okay, well, it's not as bad as I thought. And then, maybe you talk yourself into it because you've had an opportunity to think more about it. And it's not just like, you're probably taking a look at the ones that have really bad photos online. You're like, well, let's go check it out. I mean, I don't know. So I don't know that buyers are feeling like they have good quality inventory to choose from.
Are you seeing on your listings, just repeat showings from the same buyers?
Yeah, I would say they come back maybe 2 or 3, maybe 4 times, and then they either write an offer or they don't.
Sure.
So they are vetting them more thoroughly, which is surprising that we're still having a 30 or 40% termination rate because you were in the house 4 times.
Right. So, yeah. You go under contract and they go, well, it doesn't have 4 bedrooms. Well, it never had 4 bedrooms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. And I know during 2020, 2021, it was a one showing by 50 different people.
Yeah, you were in there for 15 minutes
if you were lucky. Right. Mm-hmm. Right. So interesting changes.
Yep. Yeah.
So crystal ball.
Yeah.
What's in store for 2025?
I think that buyer sentiment will change a little bit. I think that they waited hopeful that the mortgage rates were going to come down. And it was a variable that they wouldn't have to put as much weight onto.
Okay.
And that didn't happen. And so we're basically starting 2025 the same way we started 2024 as far as interest rates go.
Okay.
And so buyers didn't gain anything by waiting.
Sure.
Because we also didn't see a drastic decline in price. I mean, we saw an increase in detached properties in pricing. So you didn't gain anything except time in the rental you don't like, or you're living in your parents' basement, or you're still living with your spouse that you've been divorced for 18 months. And, so people's lives are changing and they've been waiting for what feels like the right opportunity to move, and that the circumstances are the same.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that this graph I have, or bar graph that I have here is, I wanted to see how sensitive buyers were to the interest rate change.
Okay.
And so this blue bar is properties that went under contract in that month. And so we saw it increase in the spring, which we normally do. That's just the typical buyer demand. And then we hit our peak in April of properties under contract. And then it started to kind of slowly taper off as we went through the rest of the year, except for this 1 month where we had a decrease in mortgage rates that went down to about 6%. And so we saw a bump in the pending units. And I think we would have seen more, except that we all projected rates were going to continue to go down, right? This was just before that first Fed reduction, and all the markets responded favorably. We got lower mortgage rates, but then they bumped back up and then stayed there, even though we had 2 additional decreases. So the mortgage rates just weren't responding the way we had expected them to. And so I think a lot of buyers, if you look at mortgage applications went up here too, because people were like, great, this is it. We're going to get ready and start participating in the market. And then it went back up and they were like, no, never mind.
Just kidding.
Yeah. So I think this just shows that the buyer demand is there. They're just waiting to a point where it makes sense or it feels good or whatever the numbers are that they have. Make a difference.
Okay.
And that 1% is huge for people. I know, like, through all of the research and like polls, everybody wants a 5.5, or let's get to 5.5, everyone's going to come back in. So if you're functioning at a 6, that brought a good amount of activity into the market. So,
Sure.
Whatever way we're to navigate buy downs or whatever to get them closer to this 6, I think is where buyers are.
I was going to actually ask you that, because last year when we talked, it was that magic 5.5 was like going to be the magic number.
Yeah.
So
we had some economists were reporting that we would have the, low 6s,
Sure.
high 5s by the end of this year. And we're not, I mean, we did for like a hot minute here, but
yeah, enough for people to put in their applications, right?
yeah, I know. And this is where it's, this conversation with your buyers of like doing your due diligence to be ready, because the mortgage rates change daily. And so if you in your mind, you're like, I'm only buying a house if mortgage rates are X, then you have to be ready. And you also have to hope that that property you want is on the market at the same time.
Right. And it's still on the market, right?
Yeah. So I just think that's interesting of they are pretty rate sensitive.
Okay. So based on the trends, based on the numbers, what would be your best advice for agents this coming year?
Yeah, I think, do I have any more? Yeah.
Oh.
What do I have in there? Oh, that's okay.
No, go ahead.
I think this right here is just how we start each year with the amount of inventory. And so this, yes, we have about 7,000 units of inventory we're starting 2025 with, but it's not a lot.
No, this is, when you look over here at 2008,
Yes.
19,000.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And whether those were good properties either, I don't know.
Right.
But, even in the 7,000, we have a pool of probably half, that have just kind of been lingering for a while. And these years were horrible, we all know. But I think for agents moving into 2025 is helping buyers understand the long game of, not marry the house, date the rate. Like, we're way past that because everybody's been dating that rate for a really long time and it hasn't gotten better.
Right. And that's,
we're all in a very toxic relationship and nobody can get out. So I don't think that is the sentiment. It is figuring out what you want real estate in your primary home to provide for you as part of your lifestyle and your financial portfolio, and how that's going to look over time, and not be short-sighted on the interest rates. And I don't mean to be insensitive, like, they are impactful of people's payments. However, if you're only focused on one thing, you're missing a much bigger picture. And so even though we did see some price increase this year, that's not reporting what sellers are negotiating. So those haven't gone up. They've gone up slightly from the pandemic years that we were in, but those buyers were not getting new furnaces or a new roof.
Right.
They weren't even getting to do an inspection. And so now you're in a position where, yes, you are still paying a solid price for the home, but you're in a position to be able to see it 2 or 3 times. You get to negotiate possibly with the seller. You get to, have a completely different experience than buyers were having before. And so kind of looking at that on a broader picture, because I don't think the market's bad. It depends on what you want to do in it.
Right.
Because the pandemic market was pretty terrible for a lot of buyers. They couldn't compete, and they're still looking for homes. And so just navigating what each particular client needs and then figuring out what their pain points are and find a solution for them.
Okay. Wonderful. Anything else you'd like to share with us?
I mean, I always hope that you use the data, because I think in environments like this, it can be very draining for us, because it feels like futile effort sometimes, where you work with a buyer and you're like, yeah, we're totally on the same page, we're doing good. And then they wake up one day and they're like, I'm out. And so it's hard for us emotionally, and it's hard for our buyers and our sellers to navigate that way. And so I really love the data, because it's going to help you take emotion out of this decision-making process. And it's going to tell you one of two things. Either you're wrong, right? So you're spiraling in the middle of the night and you can't sleep and you're like, ugh, like it's horrible. And then you look at the data and you're like, okay, like this is the reality of the situation. And like what I'm experiencing is unique to what the market as a whole is saying. Or it's going to tell you you're right and going to give you tools to navigate through that. Because if you're spiraling and you're right, you're not taking any action in anything. But if you can see the data and you can find the opportunities and the holes in the market, that's where you're going to be able to take action.
Well, and it's also a great opportunity to educate the clients. Yes. When you have the data and you understand it, then it's easier. It's easier to advise your clients, because you have a real foundation in order to do that.
Yes.
So, are you a person that sets a New Year's resolution?
I am not much of a resolution person. I do goals.
Okay.
And I'm not sure what's the difference, really. Like, I mean, I feel like a resolution's like a lifestyle change, and a goal, I don't know. I don't know what the difference is.
Okay.
Maybe.
All right. So do you have a big goal for 2025?
I wanted to, I've always been a trail runner.
Okay.
And I've been battling a hip injury for like 4 months, and it's making me insane. But so I had a goal this year to run at least one trail race that was over 6 miles, which I know is not that lot, but
yeah, well, it would be a lot for me. So
like normally, like I was like, I just have to rehab, which will force me to rehab if that's the goal, like, which I'm not very good at, as you can imagine.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Yeah, thank you so much for everything that you do for Coldwell Banker and keeping us up to date on the market trends and our numbers, and really breaking it down in a way that makes sense for everybody. So thank you so much, and good luck with your trail run.
Thank you.
And have a fabulous year.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Now we're moving into the luxury space, and it is my pleasure to introduce Lane Lyon, our very own Global Luxury Ambassador. Welcome to the Mile High View, Lane.
Not a trail runner, I have to say. I'm sorry.
It's really, really okay. So let's start with your role as a Global Luxury Ambassador. Tell us a little bit about that.
I have to tell you, everyone, that this role, this title is probably one that I've been most excited about, because I am the ambassador for the Global Luxury brand. And part of what I get to do is help agents here in Colorado. I feel like I'm talking, but for those of you who may not know, I really have the opportunity to educate agents here in Colorado about the power of this brand, the opportunities that we have to leverage the brand to really increase business. We have some amazing training opportunities, some great networking opportunities, and just some awesome marketing opportunities that come with the Global Luxury brand. As part of being a Global Luxury member here in Colorado, you have access to certain marketing and other tools that agents don't have, even here, and other companies don't have. And we can talk more about that later, but it's a real privilege to be able to have your name next to this logo, and part of what I get to do is to talk about what that means.
Oh, absolutely. And I just want to, say thank you so much, because you have elevated the Global Luxury brand here in Colorado, and we're getting a lot of eyes on our program nationally, because our Global Luxury agents here are tapping into the tools and resources that others aren't aware of. So thank you so much for traveling the state and being at sales meetings and teaching our agents more about how they can leverage that beautiful brand.
Absolutely. More to come, I might say.
Yes, absolutely. So we got a better picture of global luxury as a whole when the trend report came out.
Yes.
It just came out.
That's correct. Just this week.
Talk to us a little bit about what's in that trend report.
Well, first of all, this is a great resource to really help you talk to high net worth individuals, to your affluent clients, really get your head around what's happening in the luxury space. We've been talking a lot of stats here on the show today, and the trend report is chock full of stats as well. But I think what you're going to find is that the luxury sector has really outperformed other parts of real estate, somewhat insulated from some of the interest rate concerns that we've seen over the last couple of years, and that's been good. What I love about the trend report is this is a survey also of global luxury specialists across the country.
Okay.
And so this is an opportunity to hear what your peers and counterparts in other states are saying about their markets as well. And so I wrote some of this information down. We know that about 85% of global luxury specialists are forecasting very optimistic markets for buyers. About 75% say they feel very positive about this for sellers this year. Overall, very positive, very optimistic. And I think that we're seeing some of the indicators, both with what Elliot is going to talk about here shortly, with what you heard from Amanda. Here locally, we're seeing it too. Yes, our days on market are going up. Yes, we have more of a normalizing of our market, particularly in the high end. But we have the tools and the ability to market these properties very, very well. And I think what you're finding here at Coldwell Banker is that our agents are doing the job that needs to be done in a market like this. And the trend report is really kind of backing you up when you go into those listing presentations. This report, by the way, is available on desk. It's easy to find. Your managers can help you find it as well. But if you go on desk, it's on the left side under Global Luxury. You can send it electronically. You can print it off in PDF. I've kind of been studying it a lot. Some great information in there for sure.
Okay, so part of what you shared with me,
Yes.
the trend report talks about silent disruptors.
Yeah, I
Tell
think
me a
this
little.
was
Tell me a little bit more about
super
that.
fascinating, particularly when we're talking about emerging demographics. And there's some great information about affluent women in the luxury marketplace that I just found fascinating. In fact, affectionately called she elite, which I thought was kind of a cool term being given in this space. Women with a net worth of over $5 million now own 15% of U.S. luxury real estate and 13% globally. So go girl power. Because we're really seeing this demographic move up. Almost 95% of global luxury specialists say women are sharing in the decision role or are the primary decision maker when it comes to luxury decisions. And so I anticipate we'll see more of that moving forward. So that's definitely a demographic to watch.
Okay.
Women in luxury.
Wonderful. So what other nuggets are in the trend report?
Well, I'm also fascinated by another demographic that's being referenced, which is called luxury latchkey buyers out there. So if we remember the latchkey kids.
I was going to say, no, wait, are the latchkey kids now the latchkey buyers?
Remember, some of us Gen Xers remember.
Yeah.
When we were coming home from school and our parents were at work, it was kind of this phrase that was coined. If you were, and Gen X is really defined 1965 to 1980. And really the trend report is taking a look at Gen Xers. Fascinating to me because Gen Xers really are now outpacing other demographics in terms of their buying power in the luxury space. Baby boomers for a long time held all the money.
Sure.
And we know that Gen Xers really are in a place to inherit a lot of that, what's called the silver tsunami, as some of that inheritance comes to the Gen X population. But we know that Gen Xers have grown in home ownership in the luxury space 10% in recent years. And so, again, outpacing other areas. So another demographic to watch, certainly kind of moving up into that space. And I think that will be an indicator of who your clients might be if you're working in this realm.
Wonderful. So does the trend report speak to lifestyle changes?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, because
a few of those.
You have to remember that one of the things that I think is most important when you're a global luxury specialist is that you know the preferences of your high-end buyers and sellers. You understand really what's important. And so what I love is that the trend also takes a look at some of the trends, wonderful opportunity to talk about trends in the trend report. But here's a few of them that I've brought for you here today. 60% of global luxury specialists say that indoor-outdoor spaces merging are really one of the most popular choices or trends among high net worth buyers right now. That's that seamless transition from indoor spaces to outdoor. So I'm sure you've seen these areas where these walls disappear.
Yes.
Suddenly the living space just goes right outside. So I anticipate we'll see more of that coming up into 2025. That really is the number one trend that we're seeing. Flexible layouts, minimal aesthetics, I should say. I also was fascinated by something I was reading in there about quiet luxury, that there really tends to be more of a trend in this luxury space of buyers wanting more of kind of this harmonious experience when you're in a space instead of more over-the-top opulence. It really is bringing Mother Nature indoors, having health and wellness being an important part of their home buying decision, places for yoga outside and inside, sustainable features as well, meditation rooms.
I was going to say, I'm thinking home spa.
Home spa is on the list, actually.
Oh, wow.
You made that on there as well. Health conscious materials, and also an emphasis in climate resiliency, too.
Okay.
Making sure that you're buying in areas that are mitigated for Mother Nature. We're seeing this on the West Coast right now playing out. And so that is also important with buyers in this space for sure.
Okay.
I will say, too, that I brought some unique ones, Tammy.
Wonderful.
Unique personal property personalizations.
Okay.
Now, I tend to also look at, some of the quirky ideas that people have. Safe rooms and bunkers are still out there as a trend. Separate couples sleeping quarters. Sometimes.
In primary suites?
Correct.
Okay.
Separate couple sleeping quarters in primary suites. So maybe there's a snorer in the family. So we're just taking advantage of that opportunity. Golf and driving simulators in your house. Why not?
Why, sure.
That sounds like fun.
Yes.
Kind of come hang out there. Stylish hobby rooms, salon style powder rooms, separate entrances for your stylist, Tammy.
Okay.
So if you're bringing your stylist in, they need to have their own entrance.
Absolutely.
I think that makes
Okay.
sense. My favorite, last two here, pet spas and then podcast studios in your home. As podcasts become more important, you may want one in your house. Happen to know someone who has one as well.
Yes, I do. Could be a guest of mine right now.
Exactly.
So, luxury homes, are they getting bigger?
Well, I'm finding that as we talk to clients in this space, it goes both ways.
Okay.
We definitely have a demographic that's bringing more of their family in with them, multi-generational,
Sure.
particularly with the Gen X buyers. And then we're also seeing kind of a downsizing as well, but still an emphasis on finishes, brand names, all of those qualities that we love are still very, very important.
Okay. Any hint of any sort of style changes?
Well, we really are seeing more still gravitating to neutrals. I think that we're not seeing anything too crazy, but I would say that, we saw a lot of modern farmhouses.
Yes.
Be built, particularly here in the Denver area, too, with new construction. And a lot of the designers are saying some of those trends might be starting to fade out a little bit, just as we got our modern farmhouses all ready to go. And all those white walls, for example, now we're starting to see color come back onto the walls a little bit. But it really is becoming more taste specific. I think the trend also points out that a lot of high net worth buyers are also looking for very personalized. It has to feel like something that makes sense to me and it's an experience to myself. And that really goes with all price points, but particularly in the high end, they want to feel like it's personalized to what I like.
Okay. So do you see the color of the year? I believe it's a mocha. Do you see that?
How do you like the mocha color?
No, I don't know. I don't know.
Has my man, the gardener, weighed in? Because he's a paint guy.
Yes, he is a paint guy and the color guy. Yes, he's a no. He's a no-go on the mocha.
I'm curious to watch. One thing, when it comes to trends, a lot of the trends tend to come from the East Coast and the West Coast. Uh-huh. And then we kind of catch up here in the West and the Midwest. So I'm kind of waiting to see if some of these trends take a year or two before we start to see them here. But I'm not an interior designer, but I do like following the trends.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you're kind of an interior.
Yeah, well,
Come
yes.
on, Lane.
Self-made, self-styled.
There you go. Okay. Anything else you want to share with us out of the
Absolutely. Well, I want to move from the trend right to reinforcing that if you are not a Global Luxury member, I would love to have you join us. I brought up a couple pictures here of some events that we had last year. Of course, we were at CU for our summer seminar. We are just locking in dates and locations right now for our summer seminar and our experience, which happens in Vail. And so we're getting those dates figured out as we speak. We'll be making those announcements very soon. And of course, our Global Luxury member tours, very popular, great opportunity to network. And what we're finding is that our Global Luxury members here along the Front Range really do a lot of business together.
They do.
And so when we can bring Northern Colorado to Denver and we can bring some of our Southern Colorado agents up to Northern Colorado, there's a lot of referral opportunities that happen back and forth. There's a lot of deals that happen right in the Global Luxury office, sometimes at sales meetings. And so it's having those networks, and that's a selling feature that you can also mention in your listing presentations, is that you can bring your Global Luxury specialists to that listing. So we'll be hitting the road and going to your listings again this year. We're looking forward to that. Watch your email for those opportunities. But just great opportunities. And I will say, Tammy, that I tend to be a little biased, but I do think our events really are on caliber with some of the national events that are out there. And we're very proud of that. We bring some of the same guests to Colorado that you'll see on the national stages. And so if you're not part of our program, your managers and your success coaches can point you to Tina Hallberg, who does a great job with some of our behind the scenes at Global Luxury, or to myself. But this really is a great way to level up your business. And let's face it, Denver is not the same Denver. If you've grown up here, $1 million properties aren't some way off neighborhood. They're right next door. In a lot of cases.
Right. Well, I have to say that our membership in the Global Luxury Group has definitely increased.
Absolutely.
Through education, events, that was so fun at CU.
Yeah, Laura Levy was...
It was a really great day. And then, of course, the experience in Vail with some, top-notch luxury agents nationally that you have hosted.
And I find that it also helps your all your business in all your price points. If you can provide that elevated level of service wherever you go, it just benefits everybody.
So what is some advice for agents that are looking to start working in the luxury market or getting the certification? What's some advice for those agents?
Thank you. I think the best thing you can do is really just start getting involved as much as you can, finding out what's available to you. I was talking to an agent at another company who, whenever she has a luxury listing that is a multi-million-dollar or a high-end listing, she always partners with another agent from another company, which opens up a whole other set of issues. But I asked her, I said, why do you always kind of co-list with someone else? And she said, because I don't have access to Wealth Engine, which is one of the tools that our Global Luxury agents have access to. And so you have to know what's available to you, what's out there, and how to really leverage those. If you're just growing your business, find out what you need to do to start keeping track of your sales. You will use the Global Luxury Threshold tool, and pretty soon you're going to find that you have enough to qualify to take the certification. The certification in itself, it's self-paced, it's available, it's great information. So start soaking it all in. As I wrap up this question, I'll tell you that I was really nervous when I started doing higher price listings. And I went to Louis Lee at the DTC office, and I was just so scared. And he said, Lane, it is exactly the same. It's just larger numbers, but you're just going to bring yourself and you're going to just do your homework. And he taught me a lot of things about just also not overthinking it and really taking it all in and learning as much as you can. And I think that advice really has really resonated with me over the years, to not be a boundary, not to think that, gosh, I don't consider myself luxury, or I could never sell a luxury house. Really, we got to work on that, because that's the first part of the training, is that you can, because you're in the right place, you have the right network around you, you have the right access to tools and marketing, and we're here to help you get there.
And tremendous support. Between you and Tina on the admin side, but you helping agents with CMAs and listing presentations on the Global Luxury side. And I know that we have some amazing marketing now
We really do. And it continues to evolve. And I think that that's one thing that I know Karen Rishi and I are really pushing at the Global Luxury Office that we'd like to spread the word on. There's a lot of opportunity to grow your own marketing, really level it up. And if that's what you're looking for, then ask the questions because
Sure.
we may have it. You just need to kind of know where to find it. And it's not that hard.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for everything that you do.
You're welcome. Yeah,
at Coldwell
it's fun.
Banker, and especially with our global luxury brand, we have come a long way.
We have.
You took over the program, so thank you so much for that. And you always bring the fun.
Well,
as
we're going to keep finding the fun, and thank you for
Absolutely.
your support as well. I know that we just couldn't do it if we didn't have the backing. So
Yes. Well, absolutely. So now your surprise question.
Oh, okay. I like surprises.
Okay. So favorite book or movie?
Oh, okay. Well, this is good. Well, okay. Believe it or not, I'm reading the Wicked book right now.
Okay.
This is going to surprise no one, I'm sure. But I think that I got really into that with that. I do follow a lot of business-related books that I have on audiobooks running all the time. Camelia Correa was just in her office, and she gave me a couple suggestions. But I will say that I find that if I don't read a book that's not business-related, I have to have something that's not about real estate kind of filling my brain. And so right now I'm kind of reading some of the originals. So
Okay. So like Wicked.
yes,
Do you have the next one on your list?
of course,
And
absolutely.
what can you share with that?
Well, I've got to get through one first. I'm not making plans beyond that one. Reading has not been one of my things. I've kind of gotten into it in later years. But no, for me, I'm a big listener. I like audiobooks. But when I saw that you could actually kind of read the whole Wicked story, and I saw the movie, and of course,
Sure,
I think I got sucked in. Let's be honest. But yeah, so we'll have to compare notes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Lane, for everything that you do for Coldwell Banker. Up next is our very special guest, Dr. Elliot Eisenberg. Elliot is an internationally acclaimed economist and public speaker specializing in making economics fun, relevant, and educational. He earned a BA in economics with first-class honors from McGill University in Montreal, as well as a master's and PhD in public administration from Syracuse University. And I will say, if he was my economics professor, I probably would have passed the class. Just want to say that. He has spoken to thousands of business groups and associations, often as a keynote speaker. Dr. Eisenberg has been invited to testify before lawmakers and is usually asked to comment on proposed legislation. His research and opinions have been featured in Bloomberg, Businessweek, Bureau of National Affairs, Forbes, Fortune, and many other publications. He is regularly featured guest on cable news programs, talk shows, and public radio. And he is no stranger to Coldwell Banker, Colorado. And I am happy to introduce Dr. Elliot Eisenberg as also a friend of Coldwell Banker. Welcome, Elliot.
Thank you, Tammy, for that very warm welcome.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
So, I'm sure you brought your crystal ball.
I even brought glass cleaner this time.
Okay, awesome. So let's take a look back in the rearview mirror. How did 2024 end?
Oh, splendidly. It was a great year. It started out well. It stayed strong. It ended strong. GDP was quarterly better than we all expected. The year was better than we thought. Exquisite. I would say A.
Okay, we got an A.
Yeah.
Okay, 2024
It was a
got an
great
A
year.
in economics.
It was great. I kept thinking it wouldn't go that way and things would
Okay.
go wrong. Never did.
Okay, so what were the main drivers of the A?
It was consumer spending. Job growth was solid, strong. Labor markets were good, and consumer spending was terrific. And there were some data revisions that just told us that the economy was fundamentally better than we thought it was throughout most of the year. So everything was firing on all cylinders. I mean, you can look for problems, sure. Consumer corporate investment wasn't so great, exports, whatever. But the main driver, consumer spending and labor markets, fine. Absolutely.
Okay, so
I've rarely been happier.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so crystal ball time. Mm-hmm. What can we expect for 2025?
So we can think of it a couple different ways. I mean, 2025, a lot of 25 is already baked in the cake.
Okay.
It's only January. I got, it's early in the year, but it's largely baked in. So I think 25 will be a good year. It's more a matter of what happens in 25 and how will it affect maybe late 25 or later 25 and 26 and so on. And there the jury's out. New administration, geopolitical issues. You could look at any of these things and say, well, they could derail us. Some of them more likely than others, but that's always a threat when you have a new administration, right? This one maybe more than others, but it's always a wild card.
Okay. So new Congress has been installed.
Yes.
And the White House is expecting a new occupant.
In about 10 days?
Yes. Can you give us some insight into what legislation is likely to pass into law?
Well, we know that there's going to be a strong push on taxes.
Okay.
Tax cuts came in end of 17 or in 17 for calendar 18 through end of 25. And the Republicans very much want to continue that and continue those. So it's not really tax cuts, it's tax cut extensions, if you will.
Okay.
I think there's going to be a very strong push for that. There's also going to be a strong push for some sort of immigration reform. There's no question about it. We can argue what, how much, where, but there's going to be a strong desire to close the border. And I think objectively, to make immigration work going forward, the consensus essentially has to be we're going to close the border and we're going to open the front door, and maybe there's got to be some compromises here. So I'm optimistic that the Congress can get something productive done there. And I expect President Trump to do something with tariffs, more so on the executive order side, so less congressional activity. But he has many vehicles that Congress has given him over the years that he can sign things to do things with. So those are the three major areas that are good. Something's going to happen.
Okay.
We can argue how much.
Sure. So can you talk a little bit about tariffs and the impact?
Sure. Okay, so tariffs are complicated, I think is the best way to describe them. And let me give you an example. It's the best way to think about it. I'm not a big fan of tariffs. I understand politically that they make a lot of sense. There's red meat out there. People are angry, all kinds of stuff. But let me explain to you. This is a simplistic example, but it's really very accurate. Imagine America only makes two things: low-tech pencils and high-tech airplanes. Okay?
Okay.
And we're being flooded with low-tech pencils. So we decide, let's impose a tariff on pencils because we don't want to keep the foreign pencils out. They're low quality. We don't want the jobs, whatever the argument is. So we impose tariffs. Now we don't make enough domestic pencils to satisfy internal demand. So the pencil manufacturers here in the U.S. have to find workers. Where are they going to find them? From the airplane manufacturers. So we're going to raid the high-tech airplane manufacturing facilities, essentially, to pay higher wages to attract them to make pencils. Then we'll have retaliatory tariffs by foreign countries. We export airplanes.
Okay.
They're going to tariff airplanes.
Sure.
So through this tit-for-tat tariff imposition and then the retaliatory tariff, we're going to be making a lot of low-tech pencils, and our airplane exports are going to decline, and employment there will hurt, and our economy will revert a little bit. This is not a great thing economically. You're not going to find economists who are big fans of this. If you want to reduce the trade deficit, which I understand can be important, economists are not, by and large, terribly concerned about this. The way to do it is to increase savings. China, for example, has a very large trade surplus because they save a tremendous amount of income. Our consumption, personal consumption, we buy clothing and pants and chips, is 69% of GDP. In China, it's about half. So their living standards are much lower. Even though their GDP per capita is pretty high, they don't spend money. And therefore, they're in a trade surplus. Because if we tariff a country, over time, our trade deficit will just move to countries that aren't tariffed. Because our behavioral patterns haven't fundamentally changed. We've painted the house, but the rot under the house is still there. The termites are still there, whatever. So I'm not really enthusiastic about this. I think it's not a great policy, but no one called me. And politicians do what politicians do. We have to understand that. And the other thing that's important to remember here is it's not as if the other politicians, in this case Kamala Harris, it isn't that she was walking in with a litany of spectacular policy proposals either. It wasn't good versus bad. It was kind of crummy versus kind of crummy too. So let's remember that the American economy is big and we can withstand a lot of bad policy making from Washington.
Okay. So you talked earlier about President Trump's key 4 or 5
proposals, right?
Proposals.
Taxes, immigration.
Right. So can you review those with us?
Sure. So taxes are something's going to happen on taxes. I don't think we'll see quite as much tax relief as we expect. So I don't think they'll be able to extend all the tax cuts going forward. It'll be hard. A lot depends on internal politics, caucus caucus politics in the House of Representatives and the Senate caucus and so on. But it's going to be a harder road to hoe for the Republicans because Senate majority is tiny, 3 seats. House majority is very tiny by historical standards. It's the smallest in at least 100 years at 4 or 5 seats. So that makes it harder. And our financial situation's deteriorated vis-a-vis where it was in 2017. So the room to maneuver is less. But we'll get something there, there's no question. And then there's tariffs, which we've spoken about, and immigration reform. And the problem with all of these is they're either all have an inflationary bias or an interest rate hiking result bias. They're going to cause inflation or cause long-term rates to rise or something. So they all have some negative consequences when it comes to real estate and interest rates and so on and so forth. So a lot depends on how much they accomplish, how much tax cuts or how many tax cuts, whatever, how many immigrant reform, how many people were asked to leave, or how many countries have tariffs imposed. Are they 5%? Who cares? Are they 55? Oh boy, we care.
Sure.
So, and there may be a lot of talk and not much action. Politics is like that too. So I don't know, but we'll see things in those areas.
Okay. Okay. So you said the magic word, interest rates.
Yeah.
What's Elliot's thought on interest rates for 2025?
Wow, that's I hate to say that's a loser. You make a loser out of everybody when you put us on the spot. So, all right, if the prior administration, not that it was a good administration or bad one, it's just a matter of if we knew what, because we knew 4 years of Biden, we knew what was coming down the pike essentially. If that administration continued for a 5th year, I would say pretty unequivocally, short-term rates would certainly fall. I'm now not even 100% sure we'll see that. I think we'll see 2 or 3 cuts for sure from the Fed in the short run, but I'm not 100% sure because immigration and tax cuts and so have all kinds of these other impacts that the central bank is already ruminating about, and they're already reducing the likelihood of cuts, I think out of fear. Their fear is that if they raise rates while Trump is in office, he'll give them a spanking in the woodshed. So they're loath to cut them now, fearful that if they have to raise them, they don't want to do that. So we're having impacts there. And the long rates we've already seen go up, despite the fact of the reduction, because the Fed thinks there'll be fewer cuts, in part because they're concerned, uncertain of how much what Trump will do. So I think the jury's out here. I hate to say this is passing the buck, but the jury's out on what President-elect Trump is going to do as president number 47.
Okay.
I think yes, reductions, even in long term, but I wouldn't bank on it, and I wouldn't, I wouldn't bet my finger on it.
Do you want to throw a number out there?
35 basis point reduction.
Okay.
6.5, 6.5 on the 30-year mortgage. 6.5. Yeah. Now we're at 7.
Which is 6.5 is decent.
It's decent, but yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, I know. I kind of just.
Thank you for giving me decent.
I know. I just forced you to give me a number.
Yes. Right.
We're not going to do that, but
was not.
But thank you. I appreciate you playing along. Okay. So talk a little bit about the stock market.
Wow. Okay. So the stock market's had a great run. We've had 2 spectacular years, and I'm a little. The data says 2 good years is followed by another good year. Not as good as the other years, but 6-7% or something. So history says we get an okay year. There's no real problem historically. And I'm not changing my own investment patterns because we don't know the future, and you have to be exposed to the stock market to get good returns. They outperform bonds and cash. With rare exceptions. So I'm not changing my policy and investments because of the president in the White House or the parties controlling Congress, because the data shows you can't beat the market based on that data points. So I don't recommend going there. My nervousness is more the stock market's expensive. Price to earnings ratios, which is a very common metric of how to think about how much you're paying for $1 of earnings, is very high. And that suggests that over the next 3, 4, 5 years, the market is likely to underperform compared to what it's done. You're not going to keep getting 20, 25% returns here. So you might have a couple years of underperformance, likely. But that it may be 2 or 3 years until we get there. The market can remain overpriced for a long time. Predicting this is impossible and is also a loser game. So don't change your investment decisions, but be aware that a bummer year could be out there somewhere because PEs are high, price earnings multiples are high.
I've heard that a couple times now. Don't expect what you've been getting.
Unfortunately.
So we'll see.
And the market giveth and the market taketh away from time to time as well. So, and when that happens, don't go crazy. I mean, I'm not a Series 7. I'm not a certified financial planner. Please don't sue me. But you're only a day older. The market may have fallen 4% or 5% or 10% a month. You're only a day or two older. Don't sell low and buy high. That's what you want to avoid. And that's psychologically what we're built to do. You have to fight your tendencies here.
Okay, so let's dial it down a little bit. Let's talk about family finances.
Oh, they're pretty good. There are some issues here. If you look at the U.S. economy, it's like 5 different stratas: low income, lower middle, upper. The further up you go in these 20% strata, the better off we are. That's obvious. They have more money. Okay, I got that. But their wealth has increased much faster. Their incomes have done much better, and so on and so forth. So that bottom 20%, they're struggling. They're beginning to really see difficulty. And this is because all the benefits that happened to the lower income classes during COVID it's over. The money, the extra stimmy checks they got, some unemployment insurance they got that was large or whatever, don't pay rent or whatever. They affected many people, but they helped more the lower income. And that's gone. And inflation has raised the cost of goods and services, and they're really struggling. So you're seeing this bottom group really begin to experience financial stress. And as an economist, I'm really paying attention to this.
Okay. So I think last year when we visited, you talked about, we were spending money like crazy people.
Yes. And we still are.
We're still spending money like crazy people.
Because
okay.
Job growth has been good. Unemployment is up, but still low. Wage growth is good. Wealth has gone up tremendously because of the stock market performance and home prices. And all that has helped, and the NVIDIA stock and so on. And all that's helped spending. So, yeah, we're still spending wildly. I mean, Taylor Swift, it was a long concert tour, but it was a $2 billion tour. That tells you a lot about how much people want to hear live music. Good, popular live music.
Yes.
There's an insatiable demand.
Well, and there's all the money that was brought to those markets, right? Just the spend of the fans.
You know it, yeah. She altered the microeconomies of Philadelphia and Singapore and Australia and Vancouver and so on and so forth because of her presence. It altered the deck chairs. Yeah,
it was.
She's a economic force to be reckoned with.
Yes, yeah, for sure. Okay, so talk a little bit about the labor market.
Labor market's okay. It's good. I'd give it a B plus, maybe A minus even. It's pretty solid, but it was an A.
Okay.
So the direction it's weakening from very high level, but it's weakening. And that also has me, so I'm paying attention to the stock market, because if the stock market weakens enough, we have a bear market, a decline of 20%, that might cause wealthier households, those upper strata, to go, And if the labor market weakens, that would affect a lot of people, of course. So I'm watching the labor market to get insights. Are we seeing any weakening in the economy? Because that's where it's going to show up first, in my opinion. So far, we haven't seen it. We've seen some weakening, but it's still so strong, it's fine. I mean, an A minus is still a good grade, or a B plus, whatever. So I'm not worried here, but I'm looking just as a forward guidance, as insights, labor market matters. It's not as strong as it was.
Okay. Tying into unemployment.
Right, exactly. Yeah, Unemployment's going up. Unemployment was as low as 3.4 about a year and a half ago, roughly, and now it's 4.1. It was as high as 4.3, and over the last 3 or 4 months, it's kind of dribbled down to 4.1, which is great news.
Sure.
It's caused rates to go up. As unemployment goes down, rates are going to go up because the Fed's going to cut less and so on. But all in all, if we have higher rates because of a healthy economy, we're much better off than a weak economy and low rates.
Okay. So let's talk about inflation. Crystal ball. What are we going to do with inflation?
I think it comes down further.
Okay.
So the data shows that it came down quite nicely for quite a long time. It stopped going down about 8 or 9 months ago for a couple of months. The Fed got nervous, and then it began to travel down again. Now it's taking a vacation.
Okay.
It's a plateaued. It's a low level plateau, but it's not low enough. The Fed wants personal consumption, expenditure, core details, 2%. That's about 2.5, 2.6. So it's too high. And that's meaningfully, that doesn't seem like a lot to you, but it's a lot to the Fed and a lot to economists. So the Fed's being not pilloried, but the Fed's on notice that people are paying attention, and they can't declare victory yet, even though they're close. So the Fed is going to be reluctant to lower rates if for no other reason than inflation's too high. If they cut rates, well, the economy will pick up, and that'll drive inflation up. So that and the fact that unemployment has stopped falling, they go, well, that's a good sign. If it was getting worse, going up, and unemployment, well, they got to cut rates. But if unemployment's stable, that's good. And if inflation's stable, that's not so good. But both of these cause the Fed to hold back. So I guess the answer is it's causing the Fed to freeze for a while.
Okay. So the gap between the 10-year Treasury and the 30-year mortgage rate is very wide. Why is that?
Oh boy, that's not a nice question. Okay, I'm kidding. They're all good questions, but you ask thoughtful questions. So historically, before COVID, 8 or 9 years before COVID, the gap between the 10-year Treasury and the 30-year mortgage was about 180 basis points. So 1.8, 1.7 percentage points. It's now much higher. It's higher for a couple reasons. First, there's less mortgage origination going on. So the competition between mortgage originators has reduced. So they can actually make a little more money because there's less places to go get a mortgage. Another key reason, I froze here for a second. I got to think what I'm going to say here. So Rick, you got to hold off. Another reason is prepayment issues. So if I'm an investor, you're a borrower, you're buying a house, you need a $300,000, $500,000 mortgage, you're paying 7%, which is right now the going rate roughly. That's very high. If I take that 7% mortgage, I know in a year or two, you're going to refi down. Because I don't know when rates are going to come down, but they're going to come at least to 6 or 6.25, and you'll refi, and I'll lose the money. So to compensate me, I want a bigger gap in the 10-year and the 30-year mortgage. So because rates are high, I want a higher gap. If the rates on the 30-year mortgage come down, the fear of refi comes down, and that reduces the gap. So high rates make for a high gap. That sounds very redundant, but I hope it makes sense.
It does make sense.
The fear of refi is the problem.
Sure.
So there's a fear of refi, and there's not enough competition among mortgage lenders. And that's a big reason why that gap is too big. So it's possible that we could get a reduction in the gap with a smaller decline in rates. So if we really believe rates are coming down, we might see that gap come down a little more. That's a good thing, but it hasn't happened yet.
Okay. Well, thanks for explaining that. And again, if you had been my economics professor, I probably would have passed the class.
Thank you. And I'm sure you passed.
It took me more than once. Okay. All right. So looking at the housing market, where do you see housing sales in 2025?
I'm a little happier that my expectations they will perform a little better than 24. I think rates come down a little. That would be nice. But more importantly, even if rates don't come down, and that's the important thing, if rates stay where they are, the pent-up demand to move continues to build. We know historically national sales levels are 5.5 million, call it something like that.
Sure.
And we're now at roughly 4 million a year, ballpark. So we're 1.5 million short, 1 million short, whatever it is. That can't. Every year we keep rates are high and people wait. You have a million people who'd really sell if they could, but they can't. They're stuck with low rates, so they don't want to give up their rate, but they're waiting for Powell to lower. Powell doesn't lower. You're waiting for Godot. It's not a great story. So we wait. But eventually those people still have to move.
Sure.
So I think in 25, you're going to get some of those desperados that have been hard to move since 23 that now say, okay, we're waving the white flag. We're going to move anyways because we got to move. So maybe we'll see a 10% bump up, 5 or 10% bump up from, 3.9 million or 4 million to 4.2, 4.3. It's not going to be outstanding, but there should clearly be a noticeable improvement.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
I mean, year over year, home sales declined for something like 2.5 or 3 years in a row. The last 3 months, they've been going up. Partly lower rates a few months ago that's now no longer there. But it's also this guy, you got to move.
So I know the last couple of years we've talked about builders. Are they anywhere near catching up?
No. You could say, are they back where they were before COVID began? Yes, they were above it, then they went below it, now they're back where they were. But we're still not building enough houses today to fulfill today's needs. So we have a backlog of homes because in the housing bust of 08, 09, so many builders put down their tools and many of them changed careers, retired, or moved back to countries of origin. So we were underbuilt for so many years. We're now 3 million, 4 million, 5 million. You can argue how many, but it's in that ballpark, call it 4. But we aren't even building enough now to reduce that 4 million. That 4 million's there. Maybe it's even now 4,050,000. We're still under, so we don't have enough builders. We don't have enough builders building enough homes.
Okay. And what's driving that?
Part of it is on the, it's hard. Builders have a hard time. Builders want to build homes that sell, single fam, right? This is nothing remarkable. The problem is at the low end, entry level, it's very hard for builders to build an entry level home and make any money. and builders, like everybody else, has to make a buck.
Sure.
We could argue how much, but they got to make money. They got to pay their crews, pay the taxes, and make money. And between NIMBYism, land costs that are high, input costs that are high, regulatory costs, permit costs, and so on, it's almost impossible for builders in almost any city in the country, where it's a high-cost area like Denver or San Francisco, or a cheaper area like Dayton, Ohio, to build an entry-level home. So we're fundamentally not building enough at the move-up level and up. We're fine. At the $2 million range, no problem, plenty of inventory. At the entry level, 400,000 or 450 here in Denver, not enough homes being built. And there's no solution in sight unless there's sort of local regulatory reform in every single town and county across the country, because that's how the housing permits are issued. It's not a national issue. So it's a problem. It remains a problem.
So as a realtor, where are the buyers and how can I find them?
All right, the best buyers to go after right now, the best ones, are the empty nesters.
Okay.
They have money, and they want to build their fancy house in this specific location, and they're going to hire an architect or whatever on the high end, or they'll just sell their house, pocket a huge amount of money, and buy their dream house, and they'll live there for 20 or 30 or 40 years, and then they'll move out some way or another.
Okay.
But those are great buyers. They're cash. They know what they want. They're ready. If you can build an affordable house, dynamite. Make it small. Get some permission to do it. That's terrific. But those entry-level buyers are hard. It's hard to get them into something. The key thing there, as a realtor, is to know people, not literally know people in terms of bad, but in terms of Chaffa's got deals, the county's got deals, the city has deals. Oh, you qualify because you're a civil servant.
Okay.
And as a realtor, you say, I know 37 programs that we can get you $27,000 on soft seconds or something or whatever that'll get you in the house. That's what you've got to do. Figure out where to help your client get into that house somehow. You know, there are programs. I don't know what they are, but that's one of the key things that realtors should be helping at the low end. At the upper end, it's fine. And the other way is if you want to get somebody out of a house, you have to help them get into a new one. So you've got to approach them. They don't do this with me, and it annoys me. I want them to come and say, Elliot, we would like to sell your house, but we also want to help you buy a house. And we're going to work together as a team, and we're going to do a 2-transaction event. I have a buyer for your place. If they know that you'll sell it, they'll wait. Now we got to find you a place. Tell me about what you want. If someone came to me and said that, I would go, wow, I'm yours.
Okay, now you're going to have about 1,000 real estate agents.
But they get they get 2 unit sales. But that's what you've got to do. You've got to be creative. It's hard to find those right houses. So get them on your side from the get-go. It's not just give me your house, let me make a commission and go. It's we're in this together. We're going to make this work, and you're going to help me, and I'm going to help you.
Right, because we hear, I want to sell my house, but where am I going to go?
Exactly.
And that's
unless I can be assured of that second transaction, you don't have a hope in hell of getting that first one.
Right. So what is the single most important variable we should be following to know how the housing market is doing?
Well, there are obviously a lot. I mean, you can talk to Amanda. She can probably spend, 37 hours telling you about every single data point there are. And they're all good data points. The one I think is most important, I'm an economist, I'm not a realtor, so you can argue with me, is month's supply of inventory. You can argue it's not so great. I get it. But I think it's the best because by definition, it's the intersection of supply and demand. And as an economist, that makes me happy. And you want to see the direction of movement. If it's going down, housing obviously is tighter. If it goes up, there's more supply. There's less. It's easier to buy and sell as it goes up. And as it goes up, there's less price pressures. As it goes down, there's more price pressures and prices go faster. So it'll give you insights into a lot of things: fluidity, movement, quickness, speed, prices, all in one metric. So if you had only one, I'd pick months of inventory.
Months of inventory? Okay. Does that tap into absorption rate?
It does too, yes.
Okay.
Because if there's a ton of single fam coming on or multi-fam coming on, that's probably gonna increase inventory. So you'll see all else equal a rise.
Sure. Okay. What other advice do you have for us realtors in 2025?
I hate to say this, but it's not going to be the year of 21. You're going to have some time on your hands, and it's how do you spend that time productively? I'll give you an example from my end. I'm an economist, I'm a public speaker. I wasn't very busy in 2020 and early 21, mid 21. I wasn't busy. So I decided to bone up on all the skills I was weaker on in econometrics. Okay, it's an arcane statistical garbage, but it was stuff I hadn't looked at in 20 years. Here's my chance. It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance. So you're a realtor in Miami, learn Spanish. Or in California, learn Chinese. Pick up that'll get you a new clientele. Make friends in a different state. You can get some referrals. Learn about new mortgage programs. Get a better team of service providers to you. You don't like your drone shots? Well, get someone new to do your drone shots. You have a bad escrow agent? Well, get a new company to do it for you. Find a group of people. You want a loan officer who's great at FHA and one with VA. Maybe get 3 or 4 different ones. You want to be able to tap into a team, not necessarily on your payroll, not your team, but just service providers that are great so that when you get a client, you can help them right away and know you're not going to lose a transaction anywhere between hello and the table. The closing table.
Sure.
So to bone up on your team and bone up on your intellectual capital, so that you're more able to grab opportunity when it comes, and you're better able to solicit opportunity by shaking the tree and something happens.
So opportunity for just education.
Absolutely.
Right? Education, and then being able to educate your clients.
Absolutely. Yes.
Wonderful.
Make
Great
yourself
ideas.
more of a resource. Talk about, you can learn about, talk about good plumbers. Have a video. I'm a realtor. I've here 12 years. Here's a list of 4 super plumbers that I work with. You're not taking money from these guys. There's no quid pro quo. You're just being helpful as a realtor. People come to you for advice. Well, we know that Tammy has got, and she knows everybody in every trade. I need a vacuum guy, or she'll have a place to fix a vacuum cleaner, or roof, shingles, whatever. That's a way to also make yourself more valuable.
Okay.
Maybe more social media.
Great, really great ideas. You have the time, so use it wisely.
Well, use it wisely.
Right.
Time's your most limited resource. Don't blow it.
There you go. Okay, so a really important question now.
Mm-hmm.
When did you start wearing bow ties?
Oh, it's about 25 years.
Okay.
So I was an adult. I was working. I had a full-time job. I wanted to wear them earlier. But my mother, when I was a kid, I was like 15, said, "No, Ellie, you're tall. You won't look good in bow ties." And at that age, what your parents say, it lasts. So, it was like 10 years later, I finally said, or 15 years later, whatever it was, I'm going to wear bow ties anyways. And now I love it, and I can't imagine wearing anything else. It's part of who I am. It's my sense of self is my bow tie.
Well, I don't know that I would recognize you without your bow tie.
I've given one speech.
Oh my!
I just forgot to pack them, and I had a morning speech. I couldn't order one on Amazon. I was out of luck.
I would imagine. How many bow ties do you have?
Oh, I travel with about 30.
Okay.
And I have probably 50 more at home, and they're different colors and whatever.
Sure.
Depends on your mood. And
Sure.
This is now my favorite. What can I tell you?
Okay, no, I really like that one. It's
Thank
very
you.
nice, very nice. So aside from sunny Miami, where you live, what's your favorite state?
Oh, it's Colorado.
Really?
No question.
Okay.
I love Colorado. The mountains, skiing. It's my favorite state. If I had east of Mississippi, Florida, Miami. West of Mississippi, it's Colorado. Hands down.
Okay.
Other states that are up there, Oregon, Washington, I love those states too. They're beautiful trees, and the weather's not so great, but here the sunshine, the mountains. Oh, you're lucky. And
We are lucky.
And the ranking of states in the country, Colorado's number 2 behind Hawaii. So, that's pretty elite company. Florida's 7th or something. So, got me beat.
Well, thank you, I guess.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
All right. Awesome.
You're welcome.
Awesome. So, do you set New Year's resolutions?
This year I did, actually.
Okay.
So the answer is generally no.
Okay.
This year I made a couple of them.
Okay. You want to share?
Sure. One of them was to reach out to 3 people who I hadn't spoken to in a decade or more.
Okay.
Email. Hey, this is Elliot. We haven't spoken in a long time. I've thought of you often in very positive, lovely terms. If you feel the same way, please respond, call, email. I'd love to hear from you. Just a nice reconnect.
Okay.
And the other one is I want to travel ideally to 3 countries, new countries I haven't been to before.
Okay. And do you have
don't-
3? Do you have 3 on your list?
I sort of do because of friends and circumstance. I hope to go to Colombia.
Okay.
In short order, and from Miami, it's a close trip. And I want to go to Europe, and I have some friends in Central Europe, so we're going to visit Slovakia and Budapest, so it's Hungary.
Okay.
So that will get me 3. It hasn't happened yet, but Let's hope.
Okay. Well, I look forward to catching up with you next year to see how your travels went.
Thank you.
But more than anything, I want to thank you so much for spending the time with us. It's always fun. I could continue to talk with you, and
Same here.
I'm sure that we're starting to run out of time, but appreciate all of your insight, making it fun. You make economics fun. I enjoy Laughs and Graphs. I am part of your email that I get every day. Really great information in a way that makes sense. So appreciate it, Elliot. Safe travels, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us with the first Mile High View of the year. Appreciate every single thing that you do. I have a couple of reminders. Please join us on January 28th for our kickoff with the Southwest region, featuring Kamini Lane, the CEO and president of Coldwell Banker. Our very own Chris Magat will be presenting, and we will have the chief economist, Lawrence Yun, the NAR chief economist. Thanks again for everything that you do. I am super excited about 2025. If you ever need anything, you know how to find me. Have an amazing day, and we'll see you soon.